What's up, Mr. Rich?
What's going on, Doc?
Same old, man. It's your boy Jay Zilla, host of Urban Academia. Got my co-host Chulo Rich. Hello to you out there, the audience. We are talking this week, of course, one of the six major issues between men and women. Of course, we'll have that graphic a little later. But yeah, man, talking a little bit of dominance and control. And we already have people in the chat. Man, y'all are fast. Y'all are fast. So what's happening? What do you think? Dominance and control. What's your first question? I feel like I'm a guru. This is the sixth week we've done this. Talk to me.
Dominance and control, man. That's a tough subject. It's a touchy one.
Hold on, Rich. Just
a fun one nonetheless.
take a breath. Because I feel like I threw you under the bus there. As usual, I got some, preparedness issues. So I'll try to throw it to you and like, here, make magic. That's my bad. So look, we'll get into some questions, man. Get in the chat about your questions, comments, all of that. Hello, Miss Glennis. Feel y'all. Mr. Blake Brown, we see you in there. That's right. Blake Brown don't hate. So yeah, man, we got a lot to talk about. I'm still sharing this thing out. So give me your first impressions, man. I feel like I filibustered enough to loosen something up, man. Let's go.
I don't know, man. That's still a touchy subject, man. Dominance and control, but because it starts a lot of arguments. You know what I mean? Just the words itself. Dominance. People hear the word dominance, and all of a sudden it's just I don't know. That's an issue in itself. Control.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Control what?
Right.
But in reality, there are things that are dominated and controlled. You know what I mean? If you are, some people won't let you come in the kitchen when they're cooking. You know what I mean? It's just a thing that they have. You know what I mean? You come in there sniffing around and you get put out. That don't mean nothing's wrong. It's just they control that area. That's just what they do. You know what I mean? And those are good forms of I guess control or whatever. But it's the bullshit forms that are a problem. Being controlling in the wrong ways, or that dominance factor, just being overbearing. You know what I mean? Being a little too much to handle for no reason. You know what I mean? So for me, those are the things that I stand out for me when I think about dominance or control. Some people kind of want you to just do whatever you want done. You know what I mean? So that ain't how it works. You know what I mean? That ain't how it works.
Right, man. We look. Hey, Miss Constance Crawford. She says, "Hey, nephew, finally caught you live. Oh boy, strap in, auntie. Just strap in. Remember, God loves you, and so do I." Miss Glennis Phil, y'all says, "Preach it, Rich. Rich done got green screen. Look, okay." they are tripping in these. What's good, fam? What's happening, BT? So yeah, I'm gonna start this off, man. Let's do some little bit of house cleaning, right? Thanks everybody who's joining us from Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, who will listen to us later on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I put there in the chat. If you have any comments or anything throughout the show, we're gonna try to make some time for some people to come on and correct anything we got wrong. Right, or agree with anything that we've said so far, or offer up, better yet, some ideas of their own. If you're on Facebook, click that. Twitch, click that. And YouTube, what the frap, click that. Urban Academia YouTube, click that. So that's all the house cleaning I got. But we'll definitely put that over here to the side. Be sure to join us a little bit later. Now, we have been talking. Hey, Rich, will you get that comment for me? Yeah, this is my understudy. Go ahead and get that comment down for me. Appreciate it. Yeah, so we, for the last 5 weeks, don't worry, take your time, brother.
For
the last 5 weeks have been discussing the major problems between men and women. This right here, as we get ready to welcome our guest, our special guest, right? Dominance and control. This will be the sixth. I always struggle with that. The sixth week covering all this. You're on Facebook. Thank you, Auntie. Yeah, so we we're covering this thing as I welcome my wonderful wife. I can't we can't tell you who she works for. Okay, she's gotta keep that separate. But I will tell you. Look, look. Can I not say the joke? Look, I said the joke earlier.
Yes, you can say whatever you want. Go ahead.
He was gonna
Because
say it anyway. You gotta.
right.
Well, so here's what happens with us guys. So I literally said, if I say the joke out loud beforehand and she doesn't say, absolutely not, that's horrible, blah, right? I take that as permission, right? That's what that sounds like. And she's already seems to be very popular in the chat, man. What is this all about? Yeah, no, everybody want to meet Mrs. Gales apparently. So, so she works for an institution, we'll say. And we can't give the name, but let's just say it's Snails Pargo, right? Or Fells Grogo, like anything like that.
I wonder where it is, man. That's tough.
I don't know. See, that's how
so
clandestine like we
ridiculous.
are.
I'm gonna keep thinking
So
about
ridiculous.
But how are you, Mrs. Gills? We're
I'm
talking
doing all right.
dominance and control. Give us your takes. What are your biggest questions, concerns, and please be gentle.
I mean, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like, I think that can mean various things in different people's relationships, you know? In a healthy relationship, it may be we have different areas that we are more dominant in and have control of. In an unhealthy relationship, one person may literally be dominating everything to the point of abuse, you know? So I think given that parameters, then what context are we talking about? Dominance and control. Because I was told just before we got on here by my brother-in-law that I was the perfect person to be on here talking about dominance and control.
Now, why would he say that?
I don't know. Maybe because he's married to my sister and assumes that we are the same person.
Yeah, this man, look, I commend him for his bravery at his job. He's very public about being Officer Mike Lee, right? But there's no bravery that I ever see than when he's calling out his wife and his wife's sister, i.e. my wife, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he
he's
comes at him
ridiculous.
like, so look, Jeremy, here's what you got to do. Sometimes, buddy, you got to tell them, woman. See, that gets their attention right away. You know what I mean? So that tells you what type of guy he is. He's a big nut. But that rolls right into our discussion of dominance and control. What is it even, right? What is it? In what scenario, what situation are we talking about? I don't know. I don't know. That's right, Auntie. It takes bravery to call out my nieces. Absolutely. So what is it? Well, I want to hear from you guys in the comments later on with your videos and whatnot. But I'm going to start with my wonderful co-host here. What is dominance in, let's say, a relationship, right? What does that mean? See, I'm trying to paint with a broad brush. What does that mean to most people when they hear the man in the relationship is dominant over the wife or vice versa?
I think, obviously, when you hear that, it paints an ugly, it's not a pretty, it's not the way we do things anymore. It's not common. Common sense ain't common, and neither fuck is that. That's just not how it runs anymore. The Ike Turner thing ain't around. Not like it was. I don't know that used to be a thing. But
not Ike Turner.
Nowadays,
you went straight to the extreme. So
that's dominance. I saw what's love got to do with it. That's dominance.
Right, but you can agree that that's probably more the extreme. That's not most people in the middle. Or do you believe that most people in the middle are getting that back slap? Right.
I mean, I don't. Whether you got the back slap or not, I feel like if somebody has like dominance over you, it's gonna feel the same one way or another. You're gonna feel a slap, whether it's physical or not. You know what I mean? Because the word dominant, just that's a lot. Yeah, that's right. Eat the cake, man. You know what I mean? That's a lot. You know what I mean? That's a lot. So I don't think that's what we're going for in this generation. But I think that it exists, and I think that when it exists, you got to be honest about the fact that it exists, and you got to be honest enough to say that this might be a problem. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know a position or a situation where dominance is a great thing. You know what I mean? Not in a relationship. You know what I mean? Not that I can think of. Maybe there's just not scenarios that are crossing my mind right now. But yeah, just the word dominance in a relationship just don't really go together. But I think that's reasons why some people don't have relationships or can't work in a relationship. You know what I mean? Because of that dominance factor. They gotta run shit. You know what I mean? That ain't how it goes. You know,
I think it really depends on. I think it depends on the connotation in which you're looking at the word dominance, right? And I think it's just one of those things because how we view it, and I think historically, like because women have quote unquote been dominated in relationships, and how that's been translated into as in you don't have any rights, you don't have any rules, you don't have any say so. But dominance in and of itself is not necessarily a negative thing, right? Because when we say like, Michael Jordan dominated basketball, no one looks at that and thinks, oh man, that's a terrible thing. It's like, oh man, that's amazing.
Except the people that got their asses kicked.
but yeah, that's everybody.
No. Rich, you know better than that. We're athletes.
That's a different reaction.
Right, but as athletes, our reaction was like, no, he didn't. I'm about to get him. You think like,
oh yeah, yeah.
There are plenty of people who looked at Jordan when he was coming up on them and eyes wide, right? Like you could see the fear in their face. There were other people like Lil Starks and all of them who were like, man, no, this is the end of this reign right here today. And he killed him anyway.
Right. For a lot of people, I would say that probably stoked even their competitive nature. Now, in a relationship is tricky because I think when we think about dominance in a relationship, you're thinking about it in an unhealthy relationship, right? Where there is no give and take, there's no push and pull, where one person is literally controlling everything. But in most relationships, there's some level or some measure of push and pull, right? Where there are some areas that that's where you excel, you may dominate that area in your relationship because your spouse may just say, you know what, I'm not good at that. Like that's something, especially when you're talking about finances, comes up very often. Usually one person kind of manages the finances because the other person's like, look, I'm not good at it. I don't want to do it. You do that. You just tell me what to do. Whereas they may be strong in another area. So I think it really depends on what we're talking about when we're talking about dominance. Dominance in and of itself shouldn't be a dirty word. We just associate it with bad relationships, so it gets that negative connotation. So if you think about it, the word itself really is neither good nor bad. It's just how it's applied.
Right. So the idea, so let's go to that Oxford Dictionary version, right? Or at least one of the many. Right, power and influence over others, which sounds crazy at first, but like you said, it depends on how it's being portrayed, right? Even if you look at our genes, there are dominant genes and there are recessive genes, and all that means is I had the dominant gene for tall, dark, and handsome. Others didn't. So I mean, that's the humble example I can come up with, right?
Hey man, you're absolutely right, Jay.
So we have some other examples in here, but I really want to go back to what you said before. Our special guest over there talking about how it used to be back in the day. We have this idea. Me and Rich have been guilty of this, of where the woman had to stay in and take care of the homestead because we couldn't risk the source, and the man had to go out. But in actuality, we read this interesting article, right? That talked about ancient Egypt. So before this idea of the patriarchy and all this stuff came into play, this idea that women are recessive, go over there. Men are dominant, we're over here, right? So you talk about that that article a little bit, Mrs. Gales.
So there were two things that we looked at. One was an example of ancient Egypt. So we got into this debate. So let me just give you context. We got into this debate about when women became just subservient, and we got on the conversation or the topic of Africa. And so my dear husband was like, man, not in all Africa. And
Right.
so we did research. And so we found out that we started with Egypt and found out that women in Egypt had a lot of equal rights to their husbands. But then we went further and we were looking at South Africa. And actually, women were responsible for a lot of the trade. So, not just trade within their community, but actually leaving outside of their community and traveling and then basically running caravans and basically having all these titles that were
Mm-hmm.
basically to the point all the way up to kingship. And so just saying that basically it wasn't until colonialism that that structure in Africa changed and that men basically decided, all right, well, maybe we're going to subscribe to this woman. You stay in the hut and take care of these kids and prepare these meals. And basically, I run you. So we weren't always bartered with cows. I mean, we might have been, but not to the extent.
Well, it could have possibly been like, look, man, I'll marry you because you got X amount of stuff, but look, I need a few cows as a down payment.
Right.
Like it could have been the women bartering for themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that
now,
was
now
incredible.
I'm gonna tell you from what I know from knowing a cat, an older African cat, and that's for the parents. You know what I mean? So
Hmm. Hmm.
taking the wife, the parents is like, yeah, man, nigga, you better have some cows. That's kind of how that went. It wasn't the woman.
But even that idea is what we're talking about. I'm gonna put that link in the comments here in a bit. But the idea that in a relationship, women were able to divorce their husbands if it didn't go the way they wanted it to. They were running businesses, the books, everything, still having families. Like we didn't die off, right? Women were still getting pregnant and still, furthering on the different lines. But I think the ideal is the freedom and the collaborative nature, right? That symbiotic nature that we had with women until the colonials came through. So that's a whole nother thing because I have not even, researched as to how they even came up with that idea. What made them say men up here, then women? Because you got to remember, all this stuff predates Bible, right? It predates a lot of these things.
I would say more of it is less about women and more about men, right? Protecting what you believe is yours for some other man. So I feel like it in some weird way, these things came about because you guys have issues with each other. And so basically staking your claim, like I'm planting my flag on this chick and like she belongs to me. Like even if you just think about how some of these structures, it doesn't make sense for man woman relationships. So clearly there's other factors at play, and a lot of it has to do with like, hey man, he's looking at my chick. How am I going to make this a situation where he can't just come and snatch her away and she doesn't have the ability to decide, yeah, I'm going with him instead of going with you?
You don't think women did that back in the day? I think women snapped out.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like you have two guys in front of you, and one is, maybe you're in a relationship with them, and this other guy's walking around. And you're like, hey, and he's like, come on, girl, and you're like, all right, well, it was nice knowing you. I'm out of here. And so, yeah, and so just make it harder for her to go somewhere else because we as men want to have basically the security of knowing that she can't just make up her own mind because of some other guy and what he wants to do.
Maybe. I
So
don't know.
Miss Crawford, I'm looking at this comment. It says, no, it doesn't. No, actually, it doesn't predate the Bible. All of this was decided by parents, not the young people. When I said predates the Bible, and listen, I don't know what kind of internet connection you got going on, Auntie, but I'm just saying. When I made that
You got
statement,
Waffle House Wi-Fi? What'd you say?
no, I ain't say all that. Look, I'm
Yes, you
thousands
did.
of miles away, but I still ain't that crazy. Well, you don't know, Uncanny ain't playing. So when I said that it predates the Bible, the idea that men and women work together in congruent, right? It wasn't this hierarchical thing. And even after the Bible, it still wasn't this hierarchy as it is now, right? Where it is man's here, woman's here, right? Kids here, all under God. The ideal is you're equal. You're equal in being, right? As Dr. Tony Evans always says, men and women are equal in being, but we are not equal in function. So ours is supposed to run much like a company. God being the CEO, if you believe that. If not, your values, your collective values, right? That runs the ship. and then the man has his position, right? The woman has her position, and if everything is in alignment, the kids are gonna roll right on into it. So, what are your thoughts on that? How do we get so bogged down with these the religious parts of things, right? As far as how people take control and dominance, right? How we seeing it differently? I don't. What's am I saying? Help me out, wife. You the Gale's whisperer.
Oh Lord. Oh, okay. So I think what you're trying to say is how we interpret things, right? So how we read something and the words say this, and how the interpretation of whatever you read comes out. And I think oftentimes that's really what it is. It's just how we interpret it. And it's that thing of basically, I want it to mean this. So therefore, I'm going to read it in a way that allows it to go along with my own personal ideology, right? So instead of just taking it for face value and saying this is what it says, you think about it like, how is it that in any religion you have all of these different interpretations, and it doesn't matter what religion it is, really there's always some different interpretation and different application of the rules, and it's like, how is that possible? We're all reading the same text, and it's because literally we as people find a way to twist it and make it work towards what we actually want to do. So if I want to use it to be able to, snatch up somebody else's wife, or slaughter a whole country, like, I'm gonna figure out how to twist it and make it make sense. Well, God told me, that we got to go over here and kill these people and take their stuff. It's ours. People do that because we're weird. We're a strange bunch of people, and we basically take anything, no matter what it is, and try to twist it in some kind of way.
Well, Rich has an interesting thought about why that is, right? We talked about this before. Like, what is it in us that think, instead of us working together, right? Like, I can't remember. This is bank. They say, I can't remember their slogan. How does it go? Together we'll go far, right? I think it's their slogan. With the ideal of you can go really fast by yourself, but you can go a lot further with a group. So why is it that we started, kind of being shysty towards each other and undercutting each other? Rich had a good point about this a couple of weeks ago. Remind people.
Now, remind you, I don't know what I said a couple of weeks ago, but when you start talking about us undercutting each other, yeah, that's where it becomes a problem. You know what I mean? You start off as one thing, and it's when that change comes. You know what I mean? It's when those problems arise. You know what I mean? How do you deal with each other when those problems arise? You know what I mean? Are you people that, do you have a foundation built where you got something you can fall back on for each other? You know what I mean? When something hard pops up, you know what I mean? Or do you just say, fuck them? I'm mad, I'm angry, and fuck them, And if that's your go-to, then 9 times out of 10, you will not be successful. You know what I mean? You got to know how to work with your partner. You know what I mean? You got to know how to work with your partner. You got to know how to speak to your partner. You got to know how to hear your partner. You know what I mean? So that's all that comes to mind when you say that. What did I say? Hell, I don't know what I said. I don't know
So what you're talking about is the people who do the undercutting. It shows their own weaknesses, right? So the idea of
jealousy,
right. So Tony's a big guy. I'm a big guy, right? So if it comes down to physicality, most likely we're gonna be the ones in control. And if we do a good job, if one of us wins out the ultimate seat, we do a good job. We have to make sure to take care of the people. Otherwise, they rip us apart, and then a couple of weaker males will come along, and they the ones have control, right? Or females, if it just comes down to physicality. Now, how you counteract that? You invent the crossbow. You invent the short sword. You invent the machine gun, right? You invent the tools, right? You invent legislation. You see what I mean? So I think that's what you were kind of hitting on a couple of weeks ago. I just thought it was a good point. Maybe that's why I remember it more. Whew, Auntie, that's a whole paragraph and a half.
You're right. I was going to try to get to it. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just, I'm going to put this up here.
So I was gonna say, I think a lot of it sparks, what you were talking about is really just jealousy, right? You look over and you see somebody has something else that you want, and basically it's that thing of how can I get it?
Mhm.
And it's kind of that weird thing, especially when you're talking about in relationships, or even just what we were talking about, that woman going off with that other person or whatever the case may be, because maybe that person is looking at that relationship and it's like, I want what they have, without the realization that they have what they have because it's them that are together. Even if you get with that person, doesn't mean your relationship or it's going to be the same. And I think it's that kind of translates into everything that we do, right? This person has this, so I want that because they seem like they're happy. They seem like they're prosperous. And so I'm gonna go and snatch that up. And like you said, if I can't beat you with my brawn, I will beat you with my brain and make some stuff that'll beat you.
Listen, I've experienced that myself. Rich?
I hear that. I was kind of stuck on Mr. Juday's comment, which was what was it? Let me see. Dominance
I'm
without reciprocity is when it becomes problematic. You know what I
mm,
mean? I kind of like his outlook on it. I agree with that. You know, I definitely agree with that.
So now this is a good moment to bring in the wonderful Miss Jasmine. She is in the back. Anybody else? Oh, not sure what happened there. Anybody else have any comments or anything? Just make sure to click this link.
Anybody
Every
in the
platform
comments,
has their hold on, Rich, hold on. Every platform has their own individual link. You click that link, you follow the prompts, it works best with Chrome. And so that's for you guys who are watching us on Twitch. Hello. Twitter, hello, YouTube and Facebook, hello and hello. Just click that link. What'd you say, Rich?
I was just gonna say for the people in the comments, people watching, you know what I mean. Give us some examples or some times where dominance and control was problems within the relationships that you have or had. You know, I know that's usually a problem area. You know what I mean, but it's usually certain little situations rather than just overall. Usually.
So as I bring up a question, our first question from the audience here, Miss Jasmine Adams. Hello, hello, hello. I find that interesting that you, Mr. Rich, went straight to like get on and tell us about the problems of dominance in your relationship. Remember, everything here at Urban Academia, Mr. Chulo Rich, has two sides of a coin. So if that's where you're coming from, that's fine. But I also want to hear the other side, which is how has dominance and control, yielding it or taking it, helped your relationship? So either one, Miss Jasmine, you have a question, comment, or just whatever. Go.
Well, first of all, Rich, thank you. That was my comment. You see, I had my little $15 word, that reciprocity. Yeah. Well, I think, Miss Gales, you done touched on a whole lot of things that I would like to touch and agree on too, for sure. When it comes to men, if we're living in a patriarchy, right? As long as we're living in a patriarchy, women can always have that one up with, things that women are capable of and can sway the minds of men. Always. If y'all are in charge, we can always be that influence to sway you one way or the other. So, as far as dominance goes, I would say if it's if it's a matter of I perform this better, have a better understanding, better practice, mastery of that skill, if you will, and this is your lane, this is my lane. That's one thing, and I don't necessarily think that's dominant, but more of like a co-op.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
But when there's
But
the
what about when you write and you better at everything?
at
or
everything,
the other person.
Well,
Oh wait, hold on. First of all, I know that look. Please, what was that thought?
you know, I mean, as being a person that's good at pretty much no, I think that
Got him.
I think that sometimes what happens is that, if you are a person and you have that personality, you have to make a conscious choice not to rule over your mate. So even if you're a person who I am better at the majority of the things that we have to manage. And it could just be, because of where I was in my life when we got together and the things I had already experienced. It could be maybe there's an age difference, so I've lived longer. So that requires the person who is in that position to actively involve their mate, to actively invite them into that conversation and kind of force them to take responsibility with them. Because as much as it may seem like that's a fun place to be in where you make all the rules, it's not really a partnership. And so where do you turn to if you do have those doubts? So I think the best thing you can do in that situation is basically bring your mate into the conversation regardless.
Uh,
So now we're back to
Absolutely.
so now we're back to what we've been before, which is hello, where we were before, which is those hard conversations, right? Putting it on the table, win, lose, or draw. Maybe it ends up with okay, then we're not for each other. Go, be free, find your other half, right? It ain't me if that's how you want it to be, right? As Mr.
And
Tanner
that's
puts
the
in
problem. We don't do that. We might have that conversation and it's just an argument. And then that's that. It stays as an argument when maybe sometimes, yeah, you need to make that, not only have that hard conversation, but make that hard decision. You know what I mean? There's a
But
hard
that's what I'm saying.
decision.
That's part of the hard conversation, right? If every time I approach you, Rich, you like, nah, let me tell you why you're wrong. You know what I mean? Like right there, if your mate is doing that, that needs to change as soon as possible, because what they're telling you is that I don't value what you may think or have to say. I
Well,
value my own opinion.
well,
If
we
that
teach
doesn't,
people. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, if that doesn't meld well, right, with what you're trying to do, look, I just want to hear her answer. Is that weird?
Oh gosh.
Go ahead.
Really.
We teach people how to treat us, right? So if you're in a relationship with someone and you have no say in your relationship and you never advocate for yourself and you allow this person to continue to behave in such a way, basically what you're telling them is this is okay. It's okay for you to treat me this way. And I'll say, before I got married, I was in a relationship with a guy for many years, and it started off as those small things that you're talking about, where it was just like, okay, that's not a big deal. That's not a big deal. By the time I got to the end, I realized I'd really given up all of my sense of control. And so now trying to backtrack, it was a battle and there was no way to recover. At that point, I had taught this person how to treat me so badly that there was no recovery. There was none. And it had to end.
That's what you don't want. Don't give up your sense of control. You know what I mean? That don't have to mean that you have to dominate. But I was told by a very wise person to control what's in your bubble. You know what I mean? So whatever's in your bubble, whatever makes you feel good, protect that. You know what I mean? Just don't let nobody step on that. If the other person, if your partner, if your mate wants to step on, control, hurt the things inside of your happy bubble, then it's a problem. You know what I mean? Your mate shouldn't want to do nothing but keep blowing that goddamn happy bubble up. And if that's not what they're doing, there's a problem. There's a problem.
But they can only know it's a problem if you say so, right? So if you kind of just are going along with it, maybe they think they are making you happy. Maybe they think they are giving you exactly what you want, and you are literally just shrinking there on the side because you haven't said, I'm not cool with any of this, or I'm not cool with these things. And I think that's what happens probably in most relationships, is that in effort to make the other person happy, we don't say what's making us unhappy. And therefore that person thinks, oh, everything's okay. And then by the time you say something, they're looking at you like, what are you talking about? Like, where did this come from? I thought we were good.
The problem I see though is that, like, yes, those conversations are important, but a lot of times, I mean, if you've ever dealt with like a true narcissist before, who gets off on dominating every little aspect of your life, you can have those conversations with them till you're blue in the face. It is going to be a mute point every single time, because they receive reward mentally from dominating. It's like, okay, got one more up. They get this like endorphin rush, and this reward system is activated every time they get one up on you. Every time you wave your white flag and it's like, you know what?
Mhm.
Fine. You can have it that way. You can have it that way, you know? So,
I think you're right.
and it does not, and honestly, it's truly enabling, as even though you're the victim of it, you know what I mean?
Right.
It turns into a very sticky situation. So, at back to like what Rich was saying, at some point, if there's not any, like, you coming to meet me halfway on some things, there's no compromise, you not understanding me and respecting my wishes like I have been respecting your wishes, it's just, need to cut it.
You're right. You're right. You call it enabling. I got a partner to say you holding your chin up. You keep getting punched in your face. You like getting punched in the face. Keep
Right.
sticking your chin back out there for it
Well,
again. But
those
I agree.
are abusive relationships, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just
Not,
the
not a
unhealthy
physical
stuff, right?
punch. Yeah, not a
But
physical punch.
but abuse is not limited to physical, right? I think
Right.
physical is the most visible, right? Because those are the ones that actually leave marks, they leave scars. But
Right.
there are people that are great emotional manipulators. They're great
Right.
at being financially abusive. One of the key signs of a person that's abusive is they typically isolate the person. So even if I'm not putting my hands on you, I'm basically putting you in a position where you can't be around your friends, you can't be around your family. And so you don't even have a person to say, hey, like this is going on and I'm unhappy. And you basically feel like I'm kind of out here on this island alone. And so even if you're trying to advocate on behalf of yourself, they've gotten you in this place where you really don't have anyone to lean on but them. So they have literally made you dependent on them totally. And it's honestly probably worse in some ways than physical abuse because other people can't see it. So if you come to work and you have a black eye, someone's going to see that and ask questions. But nobody knows if your spouse is at home basically withholding finances from you, or if
What do
they
you do
are
when you feel like that?
that's a hard question to answer. That's a hard question to answer. I think it
Wait,
kind of depends on the person.
hang
And
on. I want you to. Sorry, I'm looking at the comments. Ask that question again, Rich.
Yeah,
Like, be more specific. What do you do
everything
when
that
what?
you were saying, I was saying, what do you do when you feel that way? When you feel like there's nobody on your side. You have a partner and there's nobody you can speak to, somebody you can talk to. You know what I mean? You feel like they're against you and not with you or for you. What do you say? What do you do? Who do you say it to?
Right.
okay, so the best thing that I can say is that is the lie that they have convinced you to tell yourself, right? Because it doesn't necessarily have to be your best friend. It doesn't have to be a family member. It could be literally just someone at work. You have to just have the courage to tell someone, and I think that's the tricky part about it is that at that point, that person has gotten you so caught up in the lie yourself that you really actively have to try to break out of it and be willing to kind of reach out to someone so you can get the courage to do what Glenda said, which is leave, but that's easier said than done, right? Because now maybe you and that person have kids, maybe you are married and you live in a different place and you're like, I have no finances or money to get anywhere. So I think it all kind of just becomes an act of courage and a leap of faith and just talking to anybody who'll be willing to listen, that's a hard one because every situation is so different. And I think at some point you just got to get tired of it. You yourself have to be tired.
So I'm gonna clean up some stuff here. And thank you for that, man. Miss Jasmine Adams, thank you so much for joining us. Any last thing before you get out of here? I'm looking for Ashton. I'm looking for Ashton Chapel. When I say get out of here, I mean on the screen for now. Wait in the back room. Get you some cookies and juice.
Last little, just to piggyback off what you said. At some point, when you realize that you are way worse off with this person than you would be by yourself, okay, you'd be a lot better off by yourself. And you hit your rock bottom, leave. If anybody is abusing you mentally, physically, financially, nobody deserves abuse. Everybody deserves respect and dignity. If anybody's jeopardizing your peace, dignity, or respect, get out of Dodge.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. We got another guy that's coming in here from No Cap Podcast. Hang on as I go through these comments. So I'm going to steer this in a little bit of a different direction here. As Miss Crawford writes in the comments, you have to reach out. You can generally tell when someone is mentally, physically, emotionally, or financially abused. For some of the easier things, I think.
Sometimes,
right? Sometimes, right? It's not always that apparent. Some people are really good at hiding things. I mean, really, really good. We talked about the Tinder swindler, right? This dude for years he was scamming these women over here of a certain age to pay for himself to look like the son or heir to a diamond empire, right? And he'd be like, I mean, whining and dining these people. And you would think I love hearing all these people who talk about the Tinder swindler like, oh, if that was me, I would have known right away. He was taking them on trips, private jets, 5-star service wherever they went. And then all of a sudden, oh, the government is after me and I just need a quick $25,000. And they were like, okay, sure. I know he's good for it. I've been on his private jet.
Me too.
Well, if a nigga with a private jet, you don't, so just free game, right? If a nigga that's got a private jet and taking you to islands and this and that, pulled I forgot my wallet on your ass, oh man, you lost. You lost.
So that's what happened.
Trust
that's what
me,
happened.
you can have funds wired or cash app or something. This nigga, I forgot my wallet, don't fly when you got a private jet. Trust me.
That's right.
Right.
So, but on the flip side, you have people like Miss Phil, y'all. You know, who she's saying, hey, walk out. And you're saying to her, well, it wasn't that easy. And she's saying, oh, I know. She's like, I've been there. I did leave. I was on the streets, but I wasn't having no more black eyes. I walked. You know what I mean? So this idea that like, oh, it's hard. Like, yeah, a lot of things are hard. Usually the things that are most worthwhile are hard. Mr. Tanner, what is your question, concern, comment? What you got for us, big guy?
I think y'all been touching on a lot of good things. And I'm just so happy to see the lovely Mrs. Gales finally on the show. That is phenomenal to finally see her on the show. Because she always makes
Amen, brother. Pour it on.
She always makes great comments. But I've been watching the comment section myself. And me personally, coming from relationship that I was in, I think mental abuse in your relationship is a little bit worse than physical abuse, because my mom used to always say you can hide physical abuse. You can cover that up. Mental abuse is something that you can't go to sleep from. It's keeping you up at night. And being in my last relationship, it was more mental coming than physical. Right. Someone trying to tell you how to spend your money, where to spend your money. Right. We got to do everything my way. And if it doesn't go my way, then they're upset. And then in tune, that makes you upset. And you go to work, man. I'm telling you, man, it's something that I can actually say, being in the relationship I am now, it's a breath of fresh air to be able to talk to somebody that before they make a decision, hey, let me bend your ear real quick on this before I decide on what I think I want to do. I need to get your insight. So, I mean, dominance, what y'all have been talking on, dominance is going on right now. Look at what's going on overseas. That's one person wanting to establish dominance over a whole other country.
And that's for what? That's what happens.
And it's been happening since the dawn of time. More. A lot of us wouldn't be over in this country right now if someone didn't decide and try to be dominant and pull us there. Taking other people's land, everything. It's all a dominance and control thing. And it's a mental thing that a lot of people can't break and haven't been able to break.
You know, I think the thing about when you talk about, just to touch on what Brian is saying, is that when you're talking about mental abuse, typically it's been going on for so long that you don't even realize that you're in an abusive situation, because they have twisted up your thought process, just how you even see the world. So the person you came into the relationship as is not the person that you are in that relationship, because whatever they said to you, the things they've told you has changed your whole view on yourself, on the world, you know. And like you were talking about, the what you mentioned actually was a combination of mental abuse and financial abuse, right? Basically just saying your money is not yours to spend how you want. You can only do it as I say. And so
Absolutely.
that's kind of a combination. But if that person has convinced you that you are ill-equipped or unable to manage your finances, you may just say, here, yeah, take my check.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
tell me what to do because I don't know anything. You know,
Absolutely.
and that is harder because you don't realize that the thoughts you're having about yourself are not your own.
That's right. I think you
That's
gotta
correct.
you gotta keep some relationships with your friends that are close to you around you,
Mhm.
so that maybe when things pop up and things happen that you're not aware of, somebody can pull your coattail to that. Somebody can
Mhm.
say, "Hey,
I
man,
completely agree. I
I think that's
completely
the
agree with
issue
that.
over there." You know what I mean? Because people that are dominating like that, what they'll do is they'll cut you off from everybody around you. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? They
Man, you
cut you off from
Mhm.
preach.
your family, from
Talk
your
that
friends,
shit.
from you know what I mean. And then from there, they're gonna take your ass through that grinder. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you gotta be careful when you notice that. When you notice people cutting you off from the people that's important to you, to the people that you love and the people that love you, that's usually one of the first signs. You know what I mean? The next thing you're going along with whatever they got going on and changing what you doing, thinking, well, maybe I'm doing this or maybe I'm doing that. When nah, that's not what's happening. What's happening is you getting fucked over. You just are emotional and you're not admitting to the fact that you're getting fucked over. You
Well,
know
I
Man,
what I
I
think
mean?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go
No, you
ahead, young lady.
Oh no, so I was gonna say I think it's because at that point you've replaced your own thoughts with that person's, right? So the words that you're saying to yourself about yourself are what they say to you about yourself. So if they basically tell you
wise
you're,
power.
you're not you're worthless,
Power.
you're not capable, you're not smart, you're those things. It's like, that thing where they say, a negative comment is more powerful
Absolutely.
than someone telling you something good about yourself, right? And it plants that seed. And so
Stop
you
talking
end
shit
up,
to your mate.
yeah, so you end up kind
Mm.
of adding water in it, right? So instead of just saying, nah, I'm getting that out of here, like you feed that thought yourself because you reinforce it by allowing yourself to kind of meditate on it and believe what they're saying about you.
Absolutely.
I believe that to be true.
Man, I need
True.
all three of y'all to reach out to one particular person
Oh
that is
goodness.
in my life that needs to hear every
Send me the
last
email.
part of this.
Send me the
Because
email. I'm ready.
I say this to them all the time, and it's like they just don't see it. They're not paying attention to it. And I mean, everything that Rich just said is 100% happening. It has been happening for years,
Absolutely.
and they're stuck. They are
Absolutely.
absolutely stuck.
It even, not to get too deep, but hell, even the Bible say, let those with eyes, see, let those with ears hear, and it didn't say, you know, you have ears, you have eyes. You just
Yeah,
might not be able to see. You might not be able to hear, so when it's deep enough for you, when it hurt enough, when it's whatever enough, you'll notice it. Me personally, I know I'm kind of an extreme person, you know what I mean? And I've learned enough about myself to know that usually shit's got to get real. It's got to get a little more extreme, a little more in depth for me to go, oh shit, when that's not what we want to do. We want to notice some of them red flags in the beginning and save ourselves some of this grief.
Well,
You know
because
what I
we're
mean?
like, I can fix that. I can fix that. I can
That's
make that
it.
work.
That's it. We can fix that. And
well,
that,
And,
look.
and
that's
it's like,
not.
no, you
It sounds
can't.
like you
No,
got
you can't.
personal experience with that.
Oh man, damn.
Don't do that. We're not doing that.
Hey,
We're not doing
Shot
that.
fired.
We're not
Shot
hey,
doing that.
fired.
hey! Oh look, we being real. We being real.
We're
That
not doing
covered.
that.
What?
We're
Hey,
not doing that.
Mr. Tanner, thank you so much for joining us. We're gonna get the last commenter in. Miss Glennis, feel y'all.
Hello, it is so nice to meet you, Mrs. Z.
Hi.
You are so beautiful. I'm so glad to
Thank
get to
you.
meet you.
Oh man, I didn't know. I should have came
hang
on
on,
sooner if I was gonna get all this love.
hang on. I gotta ask this question. Like, are you calling her Mr. Z because Jay Zilla using Zilla as my
Of
last name?
Zillow, yeah. Of Zillow, yeah.
That's awesome.
That was-
No, keep that up. Keep that up. Okay, what's your question or
Mr. Zilla.
comment?
But what I wanted to say was the hardest thing on the mental abuse is to fight it in your mind and to actually force yourself to say, I am not what you're saying I am, whatever it is, whatever they're saying, that you're not worth this, you're not worth that, whatever, and you fight it and you stand up and you say, I'm done, and you leave, whether you have children or you don't have children.
Mhm.
And when you do that, I noticed even with Ike Turner, when Tina stood up to him, that was it. He was done. He left her alone. When she cowered to him, continued to beat her. So I think that it does make a difference if it's female or male. If you cower to people that are abusing you.
Uh-oh. Sorry, have a little bit of technical difficulties. You can hear me, Miss Phil. Y'all put it in the comment and we'll get that put up. Look, we got a few more minutes here. I'm trying to figure out, for the life of me, okay, for the life of me, what about the good parts of dominance and control? Like, are there any situations out there? Get in the comments. We're done clicking in for the night.
There's gotta be. There's
Get
gotta
in the
be.
comments and let's.
Yes.
I want to hear more about when giving up dominance and giving up control, like, I don't know, becomes a positive thing.
I mean, let me tell you. So,
Many times.
you know, before I got married, I was a single mom, and so I did everything on my own. You know, I had to basically control everything within my world, and I had to do just stuff I wasn't good at, stuff I was uncomfortable with, and so when I got married and I was able basically to just say, here, you take over this because I don't like it or I'm not good at it. It was nice to kind of give up some of quote unquote my control or the dominance I had in my household, and basically even just as a parent being able to share those responsibilities, like that was a blessing because it's a lot, you know. And I think for most of us, when you find yourself in those situations, you don't necessarily think of that as giving up control or giving up your dominance in your household because it's a relief. And so that's why I said that word dominance is getting such a negative rap, when the reality of it is that it's not always. It can be. It's that thing of, if wielded incorrectly, it can be done in the worst kind of way. But when you are
without reciprocity.
Yep. If you're choosing to give up those things and someone else is stepping into those roles, that can be just a relief. So that would be my answer to what's the positive side on that.
Rich?
Absolutely. So I mean, I hear you, I feel you, and you're absolutely right. I think, you know, dominance is like you said, it's not a bad word. It's not a taboo. You know what I mean? It just has to be used the right way. If you want to step in and dominate something, then dominate something that's helpful to dominate. You know what I mean? Right. I'm gonna dominate mopping these fucking floors. You know what I mean? Why? So she doesn't have it. You know what I mean? Simple as that. You know what I mean? Do things to help you. You know what I mean? Make it a good word. You know what I mean? There's plenty of ways to flip it around. You know what I mean? But I think the ways that we generally use it are the wrong ways. So try to check what you're doing. Try to check what you're doing. Try to dominate a good way today.
Oh, sorry.
No, you
got it. Let me tell y'all something. This dude's so cool, laid back, and chill. I can't even tell, like, if he's done his point, or does he have 15 more? Well, usually I'm wrong because he's got 30 more. He's just trying to, you know, save us some time.
I keep a few in the back pocket.
You know. Oh, always. Mrs. Gales, I definitely thank you for joining us. Any last comments or questions or anything, or, you know, praises for your wonderful co-host here?
No, man, it was fun, you know. Last thing I'll say is absolute power corrupts absolutely. So just make sure you are.
She said no.
make sure you are you're sharing the power, and then, you know, see you guys next week.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. Go hang out in the back room with the others as me and Rich wrap up here, man. So 6 weeks, right? This, for those of you who don't know, we started off with Battle of the Sexes, this article that was out about the 6 main issues between men and women, right? We did that with the Juice My Life podcast, right? The 2 young ladies, and it just wasn't enough time, right?
But conclusion, communication.
Right, right. So we went through 6 weeks of this, man. It all comes down to tough, hard communication, which means you have to be honest. You have to go into it thinking, one, that person has something of value that I need to hear. If both of y'all are thinking that way, and each conversation is about building upon that instead of, no, I'm right and I'm going to show them why they're wrong and I'm right. Stop trying to win these conversations, man. Have the conversation. Make sure y'all are both on the same level as far as the values that you have and the goal you're trying to meet. But as per usual, Mr. Rich, last word before we get on the fatter hand.
Hey man, once again, thank y'all for joining another episode. We're talking about dominance and control. Dominance, control, like we said, it can be a bad word, it can be taboo. Try to make it a good thing. Try to find a way to make those words good in your family, in your relationship, in your life. You know what I mean? Dominate something that's good. Don't dominate somebody. Dominate something in a positive way, in a way that'll help you, a way that'll help your spouse. You know what I mean? If y'all aren't helping each other, you're hurting each other. You know what I mean? So anyway, love y'all. We'll catch y'all next time. Saturday, join us again, another episode of Urban Academia. We love you. We out. Peace.
For you.